Welcome everyone to the North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee meeting, January 29th, 2026. It is 6:02 p.m. on Thursday. I will take a roll call vote. Keenan Francois?
Yes.
Michael Labossiere?
Yes.
Carla is not in attendance yet. Jackie White?
Yes.
And Alex Bancuti?
Yep, here.
Lisa Bloom?
Here.
Kim Craven?
Here.
And myself, Lisa Martin. Those are the school committee members.
You
And
missed me,
administration. What?
Lisa, you missed me. Randy Rush.
Oh, Randy. I was looking at my sheet. Hang on. Randy Rush.
Here.
I knew I forgot someone. Sorry, Randy.
And
all right.
In the waiting room.
And Carla is here. So we'll give her a second to join. In attendance for administration, we have Superintendent Brad Morgan. And is that everyone that we have here at this time?
Kevin Cormier.
Kevin Cormier.
He was here.
Yep. Brad and Kevin look about the same. Sorry.
You know what they do.
Sorry. And Carla Lima has joined.
I'm here.
All right. Thank you, Carla. May I get a motion on the consent agenda?
Sorry, I just had to bring it up. I will move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
And that is Keenan Francois making the motion and Lisa Bloom seconding. All right. This is a roll call vote. Keenan Francois.
Yes.
Randy Rush.
Yes.
Jackie White.
Yes.
Carla Lima.
Yes.
Michael Labossiere.
Yes.
Kim Craven.
Yes.
Lisa Bloom.
Yes.
Alexander Bancuti.
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right, we are opening up for public comments or public communication. Robin, do you want to guide us here? Because you have
Sure. Yeah, the first person we have is Kathy Balearis. If you would please raise your hand, Kathy, so that I can promote you and allow you to talk. Okay, Kathy, you should be all set.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So my name is Kathy Balearis. I live on Erickson Road in Ashby. Although I was already planning on speaking tonight, the letter sent by the Pepperell Board of Selectmen to the school committee made it even more important, I believe, for me to make my feelings known this evening. Rather than a narrative, talking about each point, I'm just going to mention my concerns and utter disappointment. I can only imagine that the Pepperell Board of Selectmen based their letter on misguided information without performing their due diligence to see if the cost of reopening Ashby Elementary truly will cost the figures that were provided to them. Secondly, why were these same cost concerns not considered a year ago when the option of closing Spalding and combining some of the Townsend kids to AES and some to Squanicook of equal concern to Pepperell and Townsend at the time, so that they would speak out then? Third, along those lines, to all the school committee members and administration, how have all these costs been so easily calculated while so many of the costs and savings that were justified keeping AES open last year were chosen to be ignored? I brought them myself to many finance meetings and many overall committee meetings. And they got little to no consideration to the best of my knowledge, certainly none publicly. So I guess my question is, can anyone on the school committee look into their camera right now and with a straight face and honestly say that North Middlesex is behaving as a 3-town district? The behavior by administration and by the school committee is in no way making decisions for 3 towns, but rather for 2. The poor little kids in Ashby, if you put them all in a room with kids from Pepperell and Townsend, you wouldn't know one from the other. And yet the decisions that are being made are consistently putting Ashby at a disadvantage. And to those of you who are new to the committee, I hope you think long and hard about that tonight before you place your vote. And if you're unsure, don't vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Robin, the next person.
The next person I have is Chuck Walkovich. Chuck, if you would raise your hand, please. Oh, there you are. You should be all set, Chuck.
Thank you. I would like to read the letter that we sent to the school committee and to the members of the Pepperell community into the record. But before I do that, I'd like to say that we did not enter into this decision lightly. Over the past 2 years, I personally have attended numerous school committee meetings, numerous finance subcommittee meetings. I've also attended all of the budget summit hearings or the budget meetings that have been put on by the administration, which were held monthly. I've also advocated for the school district at numerous public hearings at the State House requesting additional fundings, and have also spoken to our representatives and senators on numerous occasions about the lack of funding for North Middlesex. During all those meetings that I've attended for the school committee or the finance committee or the budget hearings, while Ashby was always on a topic, it was never presented by any member of those meetings that there was a consideration of reopening Ashby Elementary School. We are not looking at this in a vacuum. We are looking at it from the reality that we have presented to the school committee, to the budget summit, what we can afford. We started that in August of this summer. The town administrator for Ashby was there, as well as a select board member, and they are well aware of the finances that each of our towns
He should be aware
are in trouble with.
of the fact.
Is there someone talking that would like me to answer something?
My apologies, Chuck. It was Kathy Balearis. I just took her permissions to talk away.
Okay, thank you. I think it is important that we look at all of the students within the NM district, not just one individual school, but what all of our towns can afford. At numerous meetings, it has been indicated that our technology is lagging, our curriculum is lagging, and certain activities are being cut from the activities of the school, which hinder the education of our students. It is for that reason and the reasons related to the finances of the school district and a lack of funding from the state that we entered into this letter that we sent on January 22nd. I'll read that letter now. Dear North Middlesex Regional School District Committee and members of the Pepperell community, the Select Board writes to formally express its opposition to the proposal of reopening the Ashby Elementary School. This decision has been reached after careful review of the town's current financial position and the significant additional cost that reopening the school would impose. At present, the town is facing a substantial budget deficit. While the board recognizes the important role that neighboring schools play in our community, we have a responsibility to ensure that all decisions are fiscally responsible and sustainable. Reopening Ashby Elementary School would require considerable new expenditures, including but not limited to staffing, utilities, building maintenance, transportation, instructional material, and long-term capital improvements. These costs would place further strains on an already challenging budget. In addition to the immediate expense, reopening the school would create ongoing fiscal responsibility that the town is not in a position to absorb without significantly reducing essential services elsewhere or increasing the tax burden on our residents. The Select Board does not believe it is prudent to move forward with a decision that could jeopardize the town's overall financial stability. The board remains committed to working collaboratively with the school officials, town staff, and residents to explore fiscally sound options that support quality education while also respecting the financial realities that we face. At this time, however, reopening the Ashby Elementary School is not a viable or responsible option. We appreciate the community's engagement on these important issues, and thank you for your understanding as we work to balance educational priorities with the town's long-term financial health. Respectfully, the Town Select Board voted at a remote meeting on January 26, 26 by Mark Matthews and Chuck Walkovich. The letter was signed by Mark Matthews, Chair, Tony Beatty, Clerk, and Chuck Walkovich, Member. It was sent to the North Middlesex Regional School Committee, North Middlesex Regional Superintendent, Mr. Morgan, Ashby Select Board, Townsend Select Board, and Pembroke Finance Committee. You know, again, I need to restate that we have been in discussions and working together with the TAs of all three towns and the select boards of all three towns. And this notion of, or the idea of reopening Ashby Elementary, the first time I heard of that was in December. And again, we have been having budget discussions for over 2 years now that I've been in attendance. So we have done our due diligence. We have looked at the numbers closely, and our town can simply not afford it without a significant override. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Chuck. Robin?
Next, we have Brad Hahn. Brad, if you're in attendance, if you could raise your hand. There we go. You should be all set, Brad. I think you're on mute. You're all set,
Hear me?
Brad.
We can hear you now.
Excellent. Good evening. First and foremost, I want to thank the school committee and all the members here. I know it's a thankless job, and what you do for our communities and our students, I greatly appreciate. I'd also like to thank the executive committee of North Middlesex, as well as Superintendent Morgan. Thank you for all you do for our students and our communities. With that being said, I've been analyzing this from a number of different angles. First and foremost, for the students, because I think that's where our focus should be. The second place being fiscally responsible. And when I look at this, I really can't find a reason from both accounts as to why Ashby should be opened. I saw Ashby Elementary on the agenda. My understanding from when we last spoke is there are upwards of millions of dollars in repairs that need to happen to that building. And not only would it affect the students, but I don't understand how that funding formula is going to happen. If Ashby hasn't been able to already make some adjustments and invest into that building, I think it's unreasonable to open it and expect the community of Townsend to fund quite a bit of that. The second piece to that is I think the opportunity to growth, both in the short term and long term, should we open Ashby Elementary, is really going to be capped as far as what we can do. Tie that to what the budget crisis has been. I don't see why this conversation should even be taking place to reopen the school at this point today. So with that being said, that's what I have to say there, and I appreciate all your time.
Thank you. Robin?
Next, We have Kate Stupinski. Oh, there you go. You should be all set, Kate.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Kate Stupinski, and I'm a special education teacher at Hawthorne Brook Middle School. I'm also president of the Teachers Association. As you make decisions tonight about how to allocate funding for the coming school year, please allow me to ask you to take a couple of things under consideration. The first is the process of closing a building and reconfiguring the Ashby and Townsend elementary schools was an incredibly stressful and heartbreaking process for staff. And it sounds like the same can be said for the community. Although we work through it, we are apprehensive about going through that kind of stress, anxiety, and cycle of changing plans again. The priority of the staff are in adding student-facing educators and reducing class sizes right now. And I want to ground this conversation in what classrooms actually look like and why reducing class sizes and increasing staff is necessary for student success, safety, and the long-term sustainability of the district schools. Across grade levels right now, classes are in the mid-20s and in some cases the low 30s. Within a single classroom, teachers are supporting students with IEPs, 504 plans, students receiving academic interventions, students with behavioral needs, gifted learners, strong readers, strong writers, and students who are mathematically advanced. This level of diversity is a strength, but without adequate staffing, it becomes incredibly difficult to meet every student's needs. Teachers are hardworking, but the current staffing model simply does not match the reality of today's classrooms. In kindergarten especially, class sizes of 25 to 30 students are neither developmentally appropriate nor safe. This age group needs close supervision, frequent check-ins, and consistent adult support. Current and projected class sizes make it extremely challenging to provide the level of care and instruction our youngest learners need. But this challenge doesn't stop with kindergarten. Every grade level has its own developmental and academic needs, and meeting those needs for 30 diverse learners in one room is incredibly challenging. Students become frustrated by the lack of individual attention, teachers feel pulled in too many directions, and valuable instructional time is often lost to classroom management. Larger class sizes also bring increased workloads, more grading, more planning, more documentation, and more communication. We're struggling to keep up, and when class sizes remain this high year after year, burnout increases and retaining strong educators becomes harder. At the same time, students' social and emotional needs have grown significantly. Educators are being asked to take on multiple roles at once, and often without adequate support. While smaller class sizes and additional teachers are critical, we also need more counselors, special education staff, school psychologists, and paraprofessionals to properly support students. There are logistical concerns with our class sizes. Many classrooms are simply too small for the number of students assigned to them. Crowded rooms make it difficult to move safely, and activities like group work, presentation, or hands-on learning become far more challenging when space is limited. We recognize that you're making difficult decisions, and there's not a lot of room in the budget. But we ask that you make reducing class sizes and increasing staffing a priority. It's not about adding extras, it's about aligning resources with the needs of the students. Investing in staffing and class size reduction would be an investment in student learning, staff well-being, and the long-term success of the district. So thank you for your time and all the work you do and the difficult decisions you have to make, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Kate. Robin?
Okay, that's all we had signed up, but I did receive 5 letters that
Okay.
we were asked to read during public comment. So I'll start with the first letter, which was from the town administrator of Ashby, Mary Daughtry. The letter was received today, and it says, "Dear Chair Martin and members of the committee, the town of Ashby and the Ashby Select Board are writing regarding the Ashby Elementary School agenda items scheduled for discussion at this evening's school committee meeting. We are formally notifying the NMRSD school committee that the town strongly objects to any proposal to close Ashby Elementary School. The school committee is not adhering to its own policies governing the closure of a school, nor is it following the procedures required by the Commonwealth for such an action. In addition, no alternative options or budgets that do not assume the closure of Ashby Elementary School have been presented to the school committee for review or consideration. This lack of required process and transparency is deeply concerning. We will be following up in writing with a detailed outline of the significant and detrimental impacts the decision would have on our students and the town of Ashby. Sincerely, Mary Doherty. The second letter is from Dave Amari, was received today. To North Middlesex Regional School District community members, school committee, and staff, I'm writing this letter to share my perspective about Ashby Elementary School. My name is Dave Amari. I'm a husband, father of 3, Ashby resident for 26 years, and have worked in the North Middlesex Building and Grounds Department for 16 years. I've lived in all 3 district towns and am fortunate to have friends and family throughout the area. First, I would like to recognize the time and dedication of everyone involved in maintaining our communities and educating our children. I've had the honor to work with many, including emergency responders, town representatives, volunteers, DPW workers, teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, maintenance, and custodial staff. I see the hard work everyone puts in season to season, and I am proud to be able to contribute as well as we all strive to keeping things running. These are people who genuinely care about our communities. They work through budget cuts, manpower cuts, shortages, and through the negative effects that economic difficulties create. My hat goes off to all these folks that continue to persevere. Thank you. To give insight into the general scope of maintaining the school facilities we were responsible for, 7 buildings totaling over 730,000 square feet of interior space, 163 acres of ground maintenance, with approximately 3,500 students and staff. The traffic increases when you add all the after school and weekend use from athletics, arts, events, and public building use. We are responsible for cleaning, maintenance, snow removal, sanding, security, and everything in between A to Z. As you can imagine, keeping up with the daily needs can be a challenge. Improvement needs in our buildings are a result of age and failures due to life expectancies of infrastructure and mechanicals being reached, and not from neglect and lack of caring. It is very disheartening to hear the negativity from the public when you see the commitment everyone involved gives to this job. My hope is we can all move away from this and work together to solve issues with understanding, communication, and teamwork. Moving out of Ashby Elementary last summer was a very difficult decision. I see the perspective from a taxpayer in Ashby and from what the towns and schools face with tough funding deficiencies. It is my understanding that moving away from Ashby Elementary School was made in order to consolidate educational resources and focus operational and capital cost into buildings that best position the schools for future. There were many factors to consider, and size and available space in the district were important factors. I believe it was a careful, thought-out process after looking at all the factors with the big picture in mind for the entire student population. Consolidation is something every public school system is faced with, and it is an emotional and difficult thing to close any building or cut jobs. We recognize there are project and major improvement needs in several of our buildings that we need to address, not just Ashby. Currently, Ashby students make up roughly 25% of the school population of Townsend elementary schools. Townsend students make up 75%. Any major school projects that will need funding in the future means Ashby residents cover 25% of the cost to update schools versus 100% of the cost if the update project is only for Ashby. Sharing the financial burden of 25% of a project seems like a better situation for Ashby taxpayers. If returning Ashby Elementary is the decision, is there a plan in place for funding to address the chairlift and any other infrastructure needs determined as essential? I assume that would need to be voted on by the town. Does returning to AES mean we be continuing to sustain all 7 of our buildings? If then, would there be no consolidation of resources? How does this impact the current budget? Moving Ashby Elementary last year was very challenging as it affected teachers and staff in schools throughout the district. The logistics and impact on everyone involved was substantial. As unfortunate as closing AES is, we moved last year. Going back after everyone has been relocated and students and staff are getting acclimated will put us back another year. I do believe the school system is not just a building, but the core of its teachers, staff, children, and the collaboration that takes place. This is currently ongoing and everyone is adapting to the change. I also believe there is a great benefit to having more classroom options and having Ashby with their peers earlier on. I work in all the buildings on a regular basis. My perspective is kids having fun learning and teachers giving them the care and attention in a very professional and safe and learning environment. I believe families should know this happens no matter what NM building their children attend, and our teachers do an amazing job. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts. I appreciate time and consideration. Regards, Dave. The next letter is from Sumner Edmonds. North Middlesex Regional School District School Committee members. To whom it may concern, my name is Sumner Edmonds. I have been a resident of Ashby, Mass. For approximately 20 years. I know I am a simple man, so please excuse the simplicity of my comments. Recently, I've seen that there was a survey taken and posted on Facebook asking opinions of closing the Ashby school. As a resident of Ashby, I never received any such survey, which makes me wonder the validity of this so-called survey. And what worries me more is what was not a controlled document allowing voting several times by the same individual. My sympathy is with the school committee and Mr. Morgan. I really wish the school committee would take all this pressure off themselves and have the 3 towns vote. Should we close Ashby or another school and list each of them so the residents decide what they want? This way it will be voted on by the people and not the school committee or Mr. Morgan. As well as list the cost option to keep all school buildings open as well as any upgrades needed to reopen Ashby. No large meetings, just the facts on a voting document. What the residents of these 3 towns will have to be prepared for is the cost increase of the individual schools if all district buildings are voted to keep operating, and list these costs on the voting document. Being a resident of Ashby, my vote would be to close Ashby and let the town have the building, and just maybe the town could attract a business to occupy the building so that revenue from this new business taxes would generate income and would help offset any future property taxes. I also think residents of this district should spend more time writing letters to their state representatives, encouraging them to advocate for more federal and state monies to help these small school districts, rather than spending all their energy and thoughts on Facebook. I've also seen on Facebook comments that the superintendent needs to be fired, and is paid too much money and is also receiving yearly salary increases of 3%. Myself, I think he deserves every cent he receives. And as far as yearly increases of 3%, it has been my entire career of over 40 years of working in manufacturing that this is an average wage increase. I'm not sure residents of this district are ready to pay the going rate for a new superintendent. Sincerely, Sumner Edmonds. The next letter is from Dawn Priest. It was received on Saturday, January 24th. Dear NMRSD school committee members and administrators, I appreciate the opportunity that you continuously extend to our community, allowing our voices to be heard and our thoughts to be considered. I want to start by thanking each and every one of you for your commitment to our students and our community. I do not envy your position, particularly given the dire financial circumstances that we, like so many other districts, are facing. I am so grateful for your efforts, whether we agree or not, whether we live in the same town or not, whether we have the same priorities or not, to make the hard choices and decisions for our schools. With that in mind, I do have concerns about the presentation that was shared during your January 13th, 2026 meeting. I know that several of the committee members voiced against the sharing of the presentation as it was prepared by only one member, which is not best practice. I also saw the pressure from others to allow it. Although I appreciate the time and effort clearly put into preparing it, it was an inaccurate representation of the facts. The presentation claimed that the student population is leaving our district in staggering numbers. Comparing today's student population count to 2019 is simply ridiculous. There is no district in the country that would consider 2019 to be an appropriate representation of baseline. I have reviewed the data over the past 4 years and drawn staggeringly different conclusions than the presenter, although I still lack enough information to be completely accurate. It should be noted that much of the data needed in order to be accurately analyzed is not available on the DESE website, specifically data for the 25-26 school year and special education placements. Yes, it is true that private school figures have gone up. It was not shared in the presentation that part of the private school figures include special education out-of-district placements to private schools. Those figures would need to be included in the analysis in order to accurately determine how this increase actually impacts our general population. Our school choice virtual school numbers have actually gone down. These figures, like private schools, include special education placements to public school districts. Additionally, charter school enrollments dropped by nearly 34% during the 24-25 school year. Could these be the same students who have opted to enter into private schools instead, thereby not actually reflecting students lost by the district? Again, we don't know because that information was not obtained or shared. The figures shared in the presentation from DESE of the student population included pre-K and preschool, our 18 to 22 special education students. However, the presenter stated that she did not factor anything but K to 12 into the analysis. Those numbers should have been adjusted to a K-12 data set if that was her intent. Otherwise, it is impossible to draw accurate conclusions from any of the data. There also weren't adjustments to the figures for outgoing class sizes versus incoming class sizes, which can hardly be considered lost students. These are just a few of the issues that I found. It seems to me that this presentation was made in a Hail Mary attempt to garner support for reopening Ashby Elementary School, as opposed to getting real information to the residents. There are a lot of emotions being presented as facts by community members, causing division and creating an unrealistic narrative. It truly saddens me. The last thing we need is an inaccurate presentation from a school committee member fueling that fire. I would urge the committee to be sure that the data being presented and the resulting analysis is entirely accurate before allowing future presentations to be shared so that the community is receiving the real facts. I'm also slightly confused as to the dual representation argument that we are losing students to other schools and simultaneously facing a capacity issue. I believe Mr. Morgan's explanation of what could happen in the future if we also had to close Spalding and experienced an increase in enrollments, in contrast to the projections, was very clear. The closing of AES is, by all accounts, nothing short of unfortunate. Having to figure out how to absorb not only the increases in typical operating expenses, but the increased costs of compliance with state and federal mandates while simultaneously receiving inadequate funding is what put us in this position of having to choose the best of the worst option. It was the only option that paired with another massive round of staff cuts, increasing class sizes, postponing maintenance and capital expenditures, increasing activity and parking fees, and chopping every expense to bare bones, was large enough to both bring the budget down enough to pass town meetings and provide the students the best education possible within the budget. Another round of cuts would cripple our district. This issue is compounded by turnover on the school committee, which makes it difficult to gain traction in long-term planning. As hard as it is for some to accept, I do think that every possible has been done to protect the education of our students. That everything possible has been done to protect the education of our students. It is where they are educated more important than ensuring that they are educated? I personally cannot answer that question in the affirmative. Again, it's the best of the worst options, but still the best option. Truly, it seems the only option that doesn't harm the students, that doesn't mean it makes anyone feel good. The division of the community is going to cause more harm than closing AES ever could. I simply do not see how or where we could find $1.6 million within our budget to reopen this as in elementary school, prioritizing a building over education of our children. I also do not see a reality where towns and taxpayers would be willing to take on the capital investments required to repair the AES building. To expect that is incredibly unfair. These are repairs that have been discussed for decades and were not prioritized by the town of Ashby. Even with the 1 year pause, knowing that the school could be permanently closed, nothing was done or even investigated. This conversation needs to be put to rest, and we need to start looking ahead at outside the box options as to if we can utilize AES building in another way that would benefit, not harm our students. I was very happy to read that in the FY27 preliminary budget message about the unexpected positive impacts that have been realized as a result of the students coming together. It is a reminder that the sun still shines behind the storm clouds. Do we really want to not only take away those positives they've experienced, teachers benefiting from collaboration and more options to assist students, students fostering new friendships prior to being thrown together at middle school, but also put them through yet another change? And at what expense? I'm not talking about dollars. I hope that everyone is able to step back from the emotional piece of this discussion and objectively evaluate the facts. Even more so, I hope that the community is able to choose to come together to support the tough decisions required of the school committee and administrators and find common ground to build from. We must be the example that our children deserve. Respectfully, Dawn Priest, Townsend resident and parent. And I have one last letter. This letter was received today. Dear North Middlesex Regional School Committee members, my name is Kristen McLaughlin, and I have been an educator in the North Middlesex Regional School District for almost 20 years. I am also a parent of a second grader at the Varnum Brook Elementary School. I'm writing to express my significant concern about the future of this district if changes are not put into place immediately. First, I'd like to speak specifically about the current conditions for students and staff at Varnum Brook. As I'm sure that you are aware, Varnum Brook houses most, if not all, of the district's special education programs. As a parent of a child with a disability, I am grateful for the amazing educators and the district support of our students with special needs. However, I do not believe that housing all of these programs in one building is appropriate or equitable. First of all, many of these students require a significant amount of support during the day, specifically when they are dysregulated. While we have staff for these programs, it continues to be insufficient. Most often, there are multiple simultaneous instances of dysregulated students. Often, all of our behavior techs are in a crisis while getting calls for more students needing assistance. Sometimes when we reach out for assistance with a student experiencing a difficult time, we are told that there is not anyone available at the moment to assist. Some of these students remain in a dysregulated state for long periods of time, sometimes longer than an hour. These needs are often filled by other staff, including our school counselors, who are then pulled from meeting with student groups. These groups are for students who require specific lessons to be taught based on their IEPs, a legal document. Our principal, assistant principal, and even the assistant director of special education are often pulled from the general duties to assist. And this is just the impact on staff. The students hear their peers screaming and running throughout the halls multiple times on a daily basis. They often see their peers being carefully escorted through the halls to calmer and safer spaces. They witness desks being thrown, supplies being tossed, and teachers getting physically hurt. My own child has been physically injured on multiple occasions from a dysregulated peer. It even prompted my husband and I to file a district bullying report so that it could be carefully monitored. Well, I know class sizes across the district are similar. 25 students in a class in Townsend, which include no students from these groups, is not the same as 25 students in Pepperell. There are more needs, more meetings, more interventions needed for those students. As an educator, I am a firm believer in the idea that fair is not always equal. I feel as if relocating some of these programs would best utilize resources from across the district, allow students to learn alongside a myriad of students and ability levels, and may even save funds on transportation, as now most of the students and programs are from Townsend and Ashby getting bused to Pepperell. As for our kindergarten, I would like to note that their astronomical class sizes have made classroom management unmanageable. They have rug areas in classrooms that do not adequately fit their students. Managing student behavior while attempting to teach early literacy and math skills has also proven to be nearly impossible. Teachers will see the impact of this for years to come, as I am sure these students will move to higher grade levels with significant gaps due to the lack of skill mastery by no fault of the teachers. Teaching 35-year-olds is an unbelievable feat, and our fantastic teachers are doing their best but they are exhausted, burnt out, and disappointed in the lack of progress in their students. They are bearing the burden of guilt that they are letting down their students and colleagues in further grade levels by not preparing them for the future of their school career. I implore you to keep this in mind for the following school years. Kindergarten is the foundation of education. Reasonable class sizes, even with a para-educator present, play a huge role in laying that foundation. Finally, it has also recently been brought to my attention that there's a discussion of the possibility of reopening the Ashby Elementary School. I can completely admire and understand the emotional ties to that building and its small and familiar school atmosphere. However, I do not feel that it is reasonable in this financial situation to allow emotions to dictate a decision that would have a detrimental impact on students and staff across the district. During my tenure as a district educator, I have experienced the closure of a school. In my second year teaching, we were informed that our adorable little elementary school, Peter Fitzpatrick, would be closing. There was no discussion, no vote, and no significant notice that this change was to occur. I'm still unsure as to whether or not there was even a discussion with the school committee about its closure. We were told to pack our belongings and we would be moved to a school that is still not suited for young elementary students as it was a former middle school. We just continue to make it work. It is my personal belief that reopening Ashby, especially with the funds and effort that it would be needed to move those classrooms yet again, would be unwise and not in the best interest of the financial security of the district. As I know you are all aware, we are living in unprecedented times, and it is unlikely that there will be any additional funds available for our district anytime in the near future. We need to make smart decisions based on what is best for the future of the district. I implore you to think very carefully about these situations and to make decisions based on fact, not emotion. I would also encourage you to come and spend a day at Bonham Brook and any of the other district buildings for that matter. What you will see is students in crisis all day long. You will see students with significant anxiety around their peers, but you will also see dedicated, hardworking, thoughtful, and passionate educators doing their best, but we are hanging by a thread. You will see a school that, even through every day is challenging, comes together because our leader who has taught us that we are better together. I appreciate your time. Please feel free to reach out with any questions. Sincerely, Kristen McLaughlin, grade 2 teacher. And that concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Robin. I want to thank the community for their thoughtful letters and their communications to the committee. And I want to thank the committee for their attention to this outreach. We are going to move on to our next topic, and that is going to be a discussion about Ashby. Before we begin, I know today's conversation is going to be a difficult one. And as a committee, we have the responsibility to make decisions that will guide the educational framework for our students. As we begin, I hope we can offer one another patience, respect, and grace. I ask that we avoid repeating the same points so we can move forward productively. I've broken the discussion into a few steps, so this is how we're going to proceed. To help keep the conversation thoughtful and supportive, first, I'm going to hand it to the finance chair, and she will share some financial information. Next, the committee members will have an opportunity to ask clarifying questions that can lead into discussion. Then, when that is wrapped up, I will give the committee members each time to have an individual statement or reflection if they choose. I ask throughout this discussion that we listen with care, speak thoughtfully, and stay focused. I know this is going to be tough. All right. With that, I'm going to hand to the finance chair, Kim Craven.
Robin, would it be possible for you to allow me to share my screen?
You should be all set, Kim.
Thank you. All right. If folks haven't had the opportunity to review the Finance Committee meeting from the other day, I am sharing a document that was prepared. We had asked the administration to prepare some side-by-side budgets for us to review, and that is what you have on the screen in front of you. So the first column is the FY26 budget, so that you can compare, and then we go across and you can see the current request from the administration at 3.06. The towns can support what is a 2.47 increase. And then we asked for what an optimum for the current situation. This is not the pie in the sky, bring back everything, but what would help the district right now to address some of the concerns around the large classroom size, some operational issues that exist, and bring back some of the teachers that are needed for the different functions within the district. And that column does not have Ashby open. The final column is, and that is a 5.35% increase over the FY26 budget. The next column is if Ashby were to be opened. That column is 5.27, but that does not address the issues in the optimum budget. We were trying to look at some basic comparisons of what the budget would look like. I'm going to scroll down. This was sent to each of you, so you do have it, but I'm just reviewing it here for you. If we look down to this area here, you can see the differences for each of the columns. So the 26 budget, what the change over that is, and the increase in the dollar amounts for what the administration has asked for, just over 2 million, and then what the towns say that they can support, about 1.6 million, with the optimum of what the district would like to see with increase in the teachers to alleviate the class size and address operational issues, be 3.6 million over the FY26. And to open Ashby without addressing any of the class size issues is 3.5 million over what the FY26 budget would be. And so you can see the full-time equivalent change in the different columns of that, and the increase over the 3.6 of what that looks like. So the town budget would be 400,000 less than what the administration has currently asked to get to the optimum with the buildings that are currently open, increasing the amount of staff to decrease the student teacher ratios would be 1.5 million. And to reopen Ashby would be 1.4 million. I just want to be clear again that the final column on the right does not include the staffing piece of it. So it would just be reopening. And to put some of that into perspective, the discussion that has been around the alternative school closure or additional school closure, if it were to be Spalding, that would close. The Spalding footprint and students do not fit into the Ashby school as it stands right now. If Ashby were to reopen with fewer grades, there's still a burden because of the administrative needs that are there in order to open a school. And to reopen Ashby, it would require additional teachers for grades 1 through 4, special education teachers. It would require the hiring of a nurse, a counselor, administrative assistant, custodial staff, and there would be questions about how some of the contracted special education providers would be able to provide in Ashby. So it's been said that There was no consideration of what it would look like if Ashby were to reopen. People can see plainly here that it was considered and looked at. The other considerations for Ashby reopening, right now there is a current ADA compliance issue on the table. Ashby has said that they are going to remedy that issue. There are questions about other ADA compliance issues in there. While we are talking finance, there's the long-standing what will happen with the wing that is closed. As many of you know, last year I did ask for consideration of a pause on Ashby rather than a closure to allow Ashby time to investigate other possibilities for the building. And I did sit for a time on a committee that was looking at options of what could happen. There's a multitude of opportunities that that building could have to be revenue enhancing. Not all of those options were presented to the community members of Ashby. So from my perspective, that didn't come to a full fruition for the finance committee or the school committee in its totality to consider what sort of that future is. So all that we're looking at is the classroom space that was there and what it would cost to open that. So not all of the other pieces are in there. So we don't have a full perspective even at this date of what would be happening long term with that facility. So those numbers that you see are just for the staffing piece. It does not include any other additional renovations that would be needed in Ashby or any of those unknowns. It's just the basics that are on there. So again, you can see the different levels. And the other thing that is especially important to note is that the budgets as presented from the administration to us that is still over what the towns have asked for includes using 2 million of the excess and deficiency, which is more than what we are wanting to be used in any given year in the policies that we're creating. So when you take what the towns have asked the school district to stay at in terms of budget, what the administration is asking for, and then looking forward of what we're going to be faced with in terms of contracts coming to a close, being renegotiated, that there's not a big pot of money sitting there that we can draw from. We might be able to get closer to what the towns have asked. The governor's speech at the MMA and some of the numbers that were discussed, we won't know for some time what happens with the House and Senate of those numbers, but it does, in my perspective, look a little more promising. But when you're considering that this is a difference of an additional $15 per student, it's not like it's an incredible windfall, but it's a small amount that will help the bottom line of the budget that the administration has outlaid. So these are the facts and figures that have been prepared that we're working off of. So again, you have the FY26 numbers, what the administration has asked for, which is still 400,000 over the optimum for what the towns have asked the school to stay at. What if there was additional money could be spent to enhance the learning environment for the children in the second to last column, and then the final column being what it would cost additional to open Ashby. So those are the budget numbers and the framework. I'm happy to have questions asked of me. If I can answer them, I will. And certainly we have the members of the administration here that can help us with this conversation too.
Randy.
I just wanted to start off at this point, just to make a correction to something that Kim had said. is the MSBA last year gave the district a pause, a 1-year pause on closing Ashby Elementary, not for the town of Ashby to figure out something else to do with the building, but for the district to decide what we wanted to do with the building because it was being closed for budgetary reasons. And at that point in time, it wasn't a capacity issue that we were saying that we had to close a building for. Because it was budgetary, they gave us, not Ashby, a year to decide what we wanted to do with the building. It was not put on Ashby's plate to figure out another use.
So to be clear, Madam Chair, the committee that I was on was looking at reuse. So the school was given a pause. The committee was looking at reuse opportunities. That the survey had reuse opportunities on there. But you're right, Randy. It is two different things. The school was given a pause to decide what it was going to do. Ashby, a small working group, was looking at what was possible with that building, and a survey did go out for that purpose. But right now, this focus of this meeting is to look at the budget numbers. And I also did want to add that the Finance Committee did not vote on any one of these budgets, but voted to present this entire document to the full committee for review. So we haven't come to a conclusion on any of these, but the vote was to bring this forward so that everybody could look at all the budget numbers for discussion.
Carla, you have a question?
I'd like to just comment, piggybacking on what Randy said, is that my understanding is that the district was given a pause, not Ashby, the town itself. I was part of that subcommittee. It was a working group, actually, not a subcommittee, and there were only 2 members, myself and Kim. The request for Ashby to make a survey for additional use came directly from Kim. It wasn't a full subcommittee request, or never was it a request from this district to us formally. So I just wanted to reiterate that and clarify that, the survey that went out was based on the push to Ashby to make that survey, not because Ashby was looking for other uses of the building itself. On the contrary, Ashby's always been asking for this committee to actually review those since day one. I've requested it multiple times for this committee to review other uses for the building in conjunction with Ashby. There's been many other discussions and options that's been presented to our working group, which Kim was the other member of this working group, to request to bring that to the school committee, because Ashby has been open to many other discussions. But again, I just wanted to clarify that it was never Ashby's request or push to look at other uses for the building, but rather Kim's request to the small group.
All right. Jackie White.
Thank you. Just in hearing the need from teachers and staff to add teachers and staff back into the mix, which column here allows us to do that? Does the 3.06 increase allow it? Does just the 2.47 do it? Where are we looking to be able to start to hire back some teachers?
That's in the 5.35.
Okay, so the other 2 options, the 3.06 and the 2.47, brings no teachers back.
The current request is essential level funded. There is a small increase in some of the staff. I would have to go back. It's a very small FTE equivalent. And then the 2.47 is the amount that the towns had said that they could support. So the increase that the budget is not necessarily reflected in the assessment for the town. So the increase, for example, of the 3.06 in the overall budget for the schools is about a 4% assessment. So what gets passed on to the town based on their enrollment is a little bit different than these numbers. This is the increase in the actual school budget. So the 3.06 is what the administration asked for. And we had discussed in some of our meetings where they would be increasing in the special education area. And then what they would have to come in at a budget, which we don't have the minutia of exactly what it would be at this point because we're still a little bit a ways. But that 2.47 shows where they would put their allocations to get to that amount so that there wasn't any funds over what the town said that they could support requested. The next column, the 5.35, is what the administration sat down and looked at that they would need in funding in order to start increasing the staffing levels to reduce the class size and address operations. The final column is just reopening Ashby, but does not necessarily add in any of the teachers to address the classroom sizes. And as I mentioned, there's a whole list of teachers that would be reallocated or what it requires in staff in order to open Ashby, which would be the additional teachers for the grades 1 through 4, the 2 special education, a nurse, a counselor, administrative assistant, the custodial staff. But that is not, those hires, if you will, would not be spread across the district to address the class size.
Kim, will you scroll down for a second? It shows the number of FTEs.
Yes.
If you go to that. So to add teachers, just if we did the Ashby option, it would be 17.65 teachers. Then if the optimal option is chosen, it'd be 19.85 teachers. Or staff.
I do just want to jump in. It's staff.
Sorry, staff. Not teachers, staff members. And then, so if you look at the FTE line, that shows the fluctuation.
Right here. So you can see the small number that were discussed around the special needs. And then to go down, the projection is it would be a little more than 1 staff position. And this is the optimum, and this is just for the Ashby reopening. And then this is the difference in dollar amounts here.
And there is also a narrative with this document that goes through each scenario. Randy.
I'd like to just start off and say, at this time of year, thank you very much to the administration for doing the different iterations. We always wind up here with what you present to the school committee that you think would be good for the district and fit the towns, what the towns are saying they can afford, what an optimal budget is. And I think that's a lot of good effort going into that. And I appreciate everybody putting those numbers together. I think, unfortunately, I think it was kind of wasted time to put together just opening Ashby exactly how it was K-4 in 24. I wish the information or that effort had been put forth for better uses, meaning that we're putting the cart before the horse. The school committee was not asked what capacity we would like to open up Ashby in, because personally, I don't think moving the children again in this year is anything good for any of them. I don't think that movement, especially when it's multiple movements, is good. I'm not asking for Ashby to be opened K-4 next year when I asked for Ashby to be considered to be opened. So the numbers that are here are not representative of what a true opening would be for some of the members. I don't know what everybody else would have come to, but we haven't had the discussions on the committee. We've had a year of this being on pause, and we haven't had any discussions on a higher level, even as far as what do we see for the district? What do we want for capacity? Where is our capacity? A lot of the questions that the school committee should be looking at, which is not just, oh my gosh, we're in a budget crisis for 2 years and we're in another budget crisis. What are we going to cut? What are we going to cut? What are we going to cut? But how about we have conversations on how do we help the district? How do we get more funding for the district other than just asking the towns and advocating on the state at the state hill? There are other ways that we can do things, but we never have these conversations. All right, I'm not sure if the whole school committee understands how the foundation budget is created. I'm not sure if everybody knows that we were on the cusp of being out of hold harmless, which would have solved a lot of our problems, and being able to get more funding from the state on a regular basis, being out of hold harmless. Enrollments, not just enrollments in the district, but enrollments for our foundation enrollment, which covers other things, has been declining, which is putting us further and further out of reach of being out of hold harmless. But again, these are conversations that we need to discuss what the data is, what the trends are, and what we can do as a school committee to encourage more enrollment, to encourage more funding from the state, to encourage all these things before we sit down and say, what does Ashby look like if we open it up? Do we need it for capacity? And I can make a strong argument that we need the capacity for everything that we're talking about getting class sizes down, for helping the teachers do an easier job with the students have a better education and a better environment, is we need capacity. We're at, especially going to even just the optimal budget here without any increases in enrollment, we're going to be at high capacity. And I know an option of modular classrooms has been brought up. We can talk about that later. I don't think that's an option for me. We have a building. It's a better option than modulars. And we haven't given Ashby the opportunity to vote on a project because we haven't presented them with a project like we have done with every other school in this district whenever we've had repairs needed. So this number is huge to open up Ashby K-4 right now. I can argue a lot of things, but that's not what it would look like if it gets open, and that's not the price we'd be looking at. But we didn't talk about it, so we really don't know what the full price is. Thank you.
Carla.
Thank you. Just to add to that, I agree with Randy, what she said. There has been talk back and forth with Ashby, and I've tried to bring it to this committee. I've tried to bring it, I think Kim was part of some of the initial conversations, but she seemed to have left the group halfway through our working group. So it left me alone to have discussions with Ashby itself. There were other options on the table that we have not considered as a school committee, potentially, the town to buy back portion of the building so that our costs aren't exactly that amount. I know that Ashby has requested at least a K-2, and I think I brought that up last time during our last meeting, and I don't think any of that has been projected here on the finance. So there are many other options other than just presenting this and presenting a full closure. Again, Randy mentioned, there would be additional teachers. 17, I believe is what it says, additional staffing. I think that would definitely decrease that classroom sizes that we're seeing, especially in the K-4 that teachers are complaining about or stressing about. And I really appreciate all the work that you teachers do. You do an amazing job. And I think that, allocating 19 with the higher budget there, which is above opening Ashby K-4, which is not necessarily the initial or only request that was presented to this committee that hasn't been discussed. But that 19 additional staffing, where would they go if there's not enough space in these buildings to put 19 additional teachers or 19 additional rooms across the district? I don't think that also answers the question that these teachers are asking about being at capacity to their class sizes. So I think, yes, having Ashby Elementary will help in that capacity, will help the teachers and again, it doesn't have to be a K through 4. That wasn't the initial ask from Ashby, is that this group initially has that discussion, and it hasn't had that discussion. As far as growth that Randy mentioned, I just wanted to share my personal story. And I think that not having a school in our town, it's not just about the town. It's not just about real estate. It's about the district as a whole. I came to this town because of Ashby Elementary. I did not move here because of the district school, but because of Ashby Elementary. It was a 7 rating. My son came up from a private school. We came from Groton, private. I paid a very large amount to have my son in a private school, and I decided to pull him out to put him in Ashby Elementary after doing multiple interviews of multiple schools from private to public, and Townsend was one of them too. I met with Mrs. C various times, walked the schools with my son, and I brought him to every single interview that we did in order to make a decision, where are we going to go to? He was in private school, and the reason why we wanted to move to a public school in the district is because in private school in Groton, he had friends from various different towns. It wasn't just Groton. We didn't have that community of friendship. He didn't build that rapport by seeing his friends in town every events or different events. And when we got to Ashby, he had that. He had that sense of community. And I felt like this was the place to raise my son, where he could build long-term in Ashby Elementary. He had lots of issues going into the public school, which the teachers were amazing in helping him overcome. But this was one of the highest rating schools in the district out of all the schools that we looked at, and of areas nearby. So I just wanted to share that experience. You know, having Ashby Elementary is an asset to the district and an asset to the town, because it does bring in new families, and it does bring in new families with wealth. I had a neighbor last year that moved in the beginning of the school year. They moved from Medford. It was a town with a lot of wealth. If you don't know, it's a metropolitan area. They lived right near Tufts. These two individuals were very intellectual, worked as an IT, high net worth individuals. These were not low income that were coming into the town. And they moved here because of Ashby Elementary with their 2 children that were going to start school. But when the school closed last year, you know what they did? They had 1 year moved into a house down the street, and I saw them every day. They sold their house. You know how much they paid in taxes for selling under living there for 2 years? But they didn't care. They said, you know what? We moved here because of the school, and now there isn't a school, and we're not going to ship them to another school in the district if it's not within our town. So we're going to move to another town that has stability and longevity for our 2 children. I have neighbors that live right behind me. Their house is worth 1.5 million. Excuse me, let me finish, please. They have another high net worth individual, IT parents, very smart. They moved here from Texas 2 years ago, the same year I moved in. And they made the choice to move to Ashby. Excuse me, let me finish.
I understand.
They pulled their kids out from elementary school because Ashby closed. They're not town. They moved them to Mason because they said, you know what? If I'm going to move my kid to a different district, I might as well haul them to another 7.0 district, which is Mason right up the street. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Keenan.
I'd just like to point out something specific about the Ashby only budget, the far right column that you see displayed on screen. Regarding the class size discussion and how allegedly there was a claim made, it's been so long that I don't even know who made it now, that reopening AES would balance class sizes. You'll see a 17.65 FTE increase over FY26. 6 or 7 of those staff members alone are not teaching staff. The other 11 are the teaching staff. That is total. That is $1.1 million. It is in that document if you just scroll down a little bit more. The purpose of the optimal budget is to bring this district back to a sustainable level to improve the educational standards in its current configuration as it is. There's no other agenda to it. This committee was asked in the December school committee meeting if they had the materials ready, including all the surveys, if they would be prepared to make a decision on Ashby Elementary. From the testimony that I just heard from the two previous members, I'm hearing a lot that we've never heard before. We have been sitting here doing this debate for 2 years. I do not know what other information we could possibly garner. We have been given budget after budget after budget in scenarios and scenarios. There is no possible way that we can make a decision that pleases everybody. There is always a cost to a decision. I do not know how to stress that anymore. Madam Chair, I'd like you to limit further comments to 2 minutes unless there was a question. Otherwise, we were going to be here forever. And I'd also like any other member who has not spoken yet to please, if you have a question, please ask your question. Because we have the information in front of us and we are entitled to make a decision. That's all I have to say.
All right, Kim.
Thank you. Following up on Keenan, I'd like to focus on budgetary information and not anecdotal information or third-party information that our community members are able to bring forward in public comment. Our job is to look at our role and responsibility. And I did hear some accusations about things that we should have been talking about. So Madam Chair, this question is for you. Were there any requests from any school committee members to put an item on the agenda that you denied related to any configuration of the schools, Ashby independently, or any others? Any of these things that were brought up tonight, were you asked to put on the agenda and denied those topics?
No, I have always said that we would take on Ashby and that discussion, which we have taken on.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying for the members of the public that none of these topics were asked to be brought on the agenda and denied. Next, we did, as Keenan said, have a meeting, and it was asked if we needed anything else from the administration to make our decisions. So to now be putting it theoretically that other things should have been done, I think we could all come to the table and say, could have, should have, right? There's lots that we could do with many of the buildings. But right now we are at a juncture where we have a decision to make so that the administration can solidify a budget and go to a budget hearing. So we have to make a choice to give the administration direction on what to do. And when it goes for other uses, it's unfortunate that, one thought was to put some tech school classes there. The grant has not yet opened up. That's not in the hands of the administration, right? They wanted to move forward with some innovative programming. They can't do it if the opportunity isn't there. So it's not like they were sitting back doing nothing or not trying to figure out a use for it. And we do not have a capacity issue at this time. We have space to expand in the footprint of the buildings that are there. And so if we have a capacity issue in 3 years, we can address it then. But right now we have a choice to make based on the finances at hand.
Randy, before I take you, or Carla, is there anyone else that would like to say anything on the committee?
So just a question about procedure. We're still in the part where we're focusing on what was presented by Kim, right? We're still talking just about numbers right now.
Yep, questions, or if you have other questions.
Specifically regarding those budgets figures that were presented. We have another section later for like our own thoughts and comments? That's what you said? Okay, so I have things to say at that part of it, but I want to save my comments for that part. I don't have any questions about the budgets presented thus far.
Okay. So. Does anyone else have any questions about the budgets presented so far? Superintendent Morgan, do you have anything to add? Or Dr. Cormier?
I actually do have something I'd like to say. I'm not sure that it's going to be within 2 minutes, but I'll certainly do my best. So something I just want to share with everyone, as you know, and it's in the budget message, my job is to advance a budget that provides people. And I want to point that out first and foremost, people, programs, and appropriate facilities, supports energized instruction, engage learning, pushes innovation in all aspects of the school experience, remains aligned with our core values. It's not a secret that the education funding formula is in need of a complete overhaul, and I will continue to advocate for reform in this area. That being said, our current budget constraints are real. We're asked each year to do more with less, and we're not getting enough support from the state. Last year, the administration presented a menu of detailed options to the school committee for consideration on how we could meet a budget that was palatable for our community, for our member communities. I can say with confidence that the selection of the option to close AES for this year was quite frankly the option chosen out of a list of very difficult options. In addition to AES, several other reductions have been made that have resulted in large class sizes, reductions in curriculum and instructional materials, and cuts to our technology. Each year, we use a significant amount of E&D funding. E&D is excess and deficiency, and they are one-time funds. It's essentially our free cash account. One-time funds should not be used for reoccurring expenses, as it creates a structural deficit for the following year. The Division of Local Services recommendations to municipalities on free cash, which certainly applies to E&D, is to use E&D for one-time expenditures, funding capital projects, reducing OPEB or pension liabilities, or replenishing other reserves. Anything else will negatively impact the district's bond rating or could create a significant budget shortfall. On October 6th, I received a letter from the 3 town leaders asking NM to keep the budget and town assessments increase for FY27 below 3%. While this is still a work in progress, we're still not able to fully honor that request with what is essentially a level service budget. Please keep in mind that our proposed budget does not address our shortcomings in class size, curriculum and instruction, or technology. As we are now just past the halfway point in the school year, the majority of what I have heard about our current model, staffing issues aside, has been positive. I've heard students enjoy being in a slightly larger school where they're exposed to a larger school community. In addition, the fears of longer bus rides were addressed by D-Bus, with both the morning and afternoon ride times being in the neighborhood of 40 minutes. Currently, the longest bus route is in the afternoon, consisting of 48 minutes, and that is for a Townsend-only run. I do want to be clear that while I remain hopeful that NM will be able to acquire additional funding for the FY 2027 budget through the governor's budget, that my recommendation to the school committee and our leadership's top priorities will be to utilize that funding to address class sizes, a more balanced distribution of our growing special education programs, and to bring back the curriculum and technology items that were reduced to get an approved budget for the current school year. That's all I have for now.
All right. Anyone else have a question? Because I do have a question. The model that you presented with bringing Ashby back, what happens to the special education programs? Do they remain, or are we able to spread them out through the district?
So I do just want to explain the special education programs and how they ended up in Pepperell Ford. I know that we do have some new committee members on, but we also have some people on the call that may not be aware. All of the programs were moved to Pepperell right around shortly after I was hired as a superintendent. And part of that was because having them spread out across the district was costing the district a significant amount of money in special education transportation, as well as our service providers. We had to hire several fractional staff. And if you have, say, for instance, a speech and language pathologist that teaches at Varnum, and then they have to go to Ashby. While they're driving to Ashby, we are losing an instructional period while they're traveling. If they're going to Spalding, we're losing an instructional period when they're traveling. So it becomes very expensive. We were able to save close to $300,000 a year in van transportation alone. The issue now is that when the programs moved, the majority of the students were from Pepperell. And that is no longer the case in a couple of our programs. On top of that, our programs have really grown exponentially. So spreading them out makes sense. If we reopen Ashby, moving the programs does become more difficult because we will still have some students in Ashby that will be on IEPs and will require service providers, which means we will have, again, staff traveling to another school, losing another instructional period to travel as opposed to supporting students. So it's not something that I can say would be impossible, but it would be more expensive because the service providers, again, are a part of the IEP. The students are guaranteed that service, and we have to make sure that that service is in place in the student's home school or where the program is located. But again, just because a student is not in a sub-separate special education program does not mean that they're not getting some type of service from a service provider. Again, occupational therapy, speech and language, things along those lines could be for students that are not in programs as well. The other piece that I wanted to add, and again, I know K2 was mentioned at the last school committee meeting as well. It's really not something, again, we weren't asked to look at it certainly from anything that I can recall. But one of the bigger issues that we're going to face is that when Ashby was closed at the end of last year, it was already a very small school. If we're going to make an even smaller school, you still have to have an administrative assistant, a nurse, a guidance counselor, to make sure that those students are covered if there's an issue in the building. You can't have someone that's being shared between buildings in case there's an issue. We need someone there to answer the phones and be the receptionist and be the lead secretary. We need a nurse to be able to handle 6 students. So if we're going to go even below the 110 students that were there previously, I'm not quite sure what that looks like as far as job volume for similar positions in our other schools.
All right, Jackie has raised her hand. I'm going to go to Jackie.
Yes, going back to the budget question, I'm hoping that someone more capable than me can explain this from my understanding, keep repeating the message to me, and then also help the people who are on the call tonight understand. So if we are to, let's say, pass the budget at the 3.06 increase, and that hearing is on February 9th, it then goes to the towns. What happens if the towns reject that number? Are we then forced to dip into the E&D, or how does that process work?
So if the town rejects the number, it would be my understanding that we would have to come back to the school committee with an alternative budget and make the decision whether or not to use more E&D or to make additional cuts to the budget. But again, as I mentioned earlier, and I just want to, and I'll keep stating this, we're already planning to use $2.2 million out of E&D this year. And that, to me, is a significant risk because we're, in essence, continuing to use E&D for ongoing expenses that should be supported in the budget. Now, again, we're not properly supported in our budget, but that has been that has been seen. We're in I believe, the top 10 for the most under-supported school districts in the Commonwealth right now from the state. And we absolutely would be in significant trouble if we did not use some of our E&D funding. But to even consider increasing it would be, to me, extremely dangerous for the upcoming school year. And I know it's been mentioned, there are budget problems this year, budget problems next year. There have been budget problems every single year since I've been in the district and predating me. So budget problems in regional school districts are commonplace, especially when they're not properly funded. This is not something new. And I do want to say that I think my administrative team does an amazing job with managing the budget that we do have on an annual basis. And even this year, our staff, our teachers are struggling. They come to work every day. They do the very best they can, and I can do nothing but commend the excellent work they do on a day in and day out basis, even under the significant pressures that they are currently under. So thank you to the staff.
Okay, Jackie, I'm gonna jump on what Brad said, how the process works. So coming up is our budget hearing. This is where the towns come forward and people can make public comment about our budget. We don't have to adopt a budget till mid-March. Mid-March, it is sent to the towns and the towns decide if they support it or not. And usually this happens through they have their town meetings. They decide. Now, sometimes they've put it on a ballot before because they've had a special town meeting. So there's been a few different ways that we've done this. The towns have done this over the years. Now, if the budget is rejected, it has to be adopted by 2 of the 3 towns. If the budget is rejected by all, or, we don't get 2 of the towns to go for the budget, we need to drop our budget at least by $1 to bring it back to them. All right. And so iterations can go on, and then we can go into, if there is nothing approved, and this happened 2 years ago, not last year, where we went to a 12th budget. So, and you run on that for a while until a budget is approved. And the state steps in that 1/12th budget. All right. Any more questions with that? Any more questions? Randy, is your question about the budget or is it moving forward?
I have a couple. One, just to add on for Jackie, is once the school committee approves a budget, we cannot raise the assessments to the towns thereafter. So anything, the very first budget that we present to the towns, regardless of whether it gets to town meeting, we cannot raise their assessments after that. And that is the caveat. So like Lisa had said, if they happen to reject and we don't get 2 towns voting for it, then we need to reduce their assessments by as little as $1. Not that we would go back and do that, but as little as $1, we need to reduce it from where we were and can never go back up until the next year. My second comment is I wanted to dispute what was said before, Lisa. I gave that
Madam Chair, can I raise a point of inquiry?
Yes, Keenan.
As I understand, this portion of the section is for questions. I would like, if there are no additional questions on the financial impact of this budget, that we move on to personal statements.
I appreciate that, Keenan, but you know what? I was told that nobody has been denied being on the agenda and having a conversation, and I am disputing that. I waited very patiently and didn't raise a point of contention when it was stated. But I had presented a presentation for the agenda at the last meeting. It was not distributed. It was put on to be a question. When the members had agreed, after I was trying to be denied to present it, there was no discussion on it. We were supposed to have a full discussion about AES last meeting. It didn't happen. And my presentation and the data I was trying to raise is exactly what I'm trying to raise this meeting because I wasn't able to fully address it last meeting. So you were asking about things we didn't talk about. Well, I'm raising the things we didn't talk about because I was denied being able to raise those things. So that is my dispute there. You want a question? Fine. Can the administration explain how we keep having declining enrollments that's affecting our budgets when the birth rates have been stable since 2008 and our total population within the 3 towns has been consistent since at least 2019. There is not a loss of population in the 3 towns. There's only a loss in our district. Can we please address why that might be happening, where they're going, and at the school committee level, it would be great if we could have a conversation on how to reverse that trend at a future date.
We have a point of order, and I'm not sure how this works on school committee versus town meeting, but on town meeting floor, this would be out of order. It is not on topic of asking about the budget that was presented by the administration.
Can the administration please explain how this budget has any reduced costs or how anything in this budget is being affected by the loss of enrollment that we are seeing in this district?
If you might, Madam Chair, if I could take that before the superintendent and the administration, because it is something that we have been given in budget material. And as we know, first of all, that a declining enrollment does not mean a declining budget. When there are students that require specialized services, that actually is an increased cost to the district. Further, the statement about bringing a presentation, Randy, that has not been vetted is very different than bringing a topic. You did not, from what I could see of the last meeting, ask for a topic to be brought forward. You wanted to give a presentation of data that was not wholly vetted. We've received correspondence from the public on that. I asked you questions on that. Again, that is separate. What we are here to discuss tonight are the budget figures that were brought to the administration. We have different scenarios before us to look at budgetarily. And with that, we have on our agenda tonight to talk about a facility and whether the facility is needed for the education of the children at this time with the budget that we have. Other topics, I think, are fair game to put on an agenda, allowing the administration time to collect data. But it is seemingly very off topic right now to randomly ask how birth rates are affecting our budget.
I appreciate that, but these conversations just have never been had, and they are very, very important and pertinent to what we are deciding on tonight.
Brad, do you have anything, or Superintendent Morgan, do you have anything to add?
Have anything as far as answering that question?
Yes. Anything to?
Sure. I mean, I can certainly add something. I mean, I would say that in the future, if a question like this is going to come up, we would certainly appreciate just a heads up that it is coming, so we can make sure that the details we're providing are fully accurate. But I would say at this point that there are public schools. Again, it's a trend, losing students across the Commonwealth. It's no secret that career and tech schools and charter schools are really getting all the riches at this point as far as state funding goes. So we do lose a number of students down the career tech path, but also to charter schools. And a lot of that, especially with the career tech path, are students that are looking at other options as opposed to going to college and looking at careers as an option, or potentially both, and having a little bit of having the mix of being able to go to a career and tech school and look to see if they can select a concentration in an area that they enjoy or could potentially enjoy at the high school level, and look to see if they want to potentially explore that at the post-secondary level. The other piece that we have, and certainly I would say adds to the increase in private schools, is something that we have discussed at Roundtable on several occasions, is the fact that we do have a growing number of citizens that aren't in full agreement with the Massachusetts curriculum at this point, especially around the social emotional component. So we do have a growing number of residents, which I think also impacts homeschooling as well, of families that are simply just not supportive of the curriculum that public schools are required to cover at this point in time. Outside of that, if it's something the committee would like us to look into, we're certainly willing to do a deep dive and see what information we can come up with to share with the committee.
I see Kevin, or Dr. Comier, you raised your hand. Was there something?
Yeah, so this afternoon I was actually starting to play around with some of these numbers. I don't have it pretty and presentable yet, but I do have that over the last 3-year trend of students who have left the towns for choice charter or tuitions to other agreeable. I think it's like other district agreements. I can't exactly remember what. I think it's like a student going to a different tech school that's not their home district's tech school. Unfortunately, the numbers are so small that I have to doctor it up because you could actually probably identify students from this data. So I don't want to present it yet, but I will say that from October 1st last year to October 1st this year, the change was only down 17 for the entire district. So to the point about whether a declining enrollment can or can't lead to declining costs, like 17 isn't even a full class. If they were all in the same class in the same town, that's a teacher. But they're spread out against 7 grade levels in 3 towns. So there's less money coming in for the per pupil, but there's no offset cost from that specific ask. Now, private schools, all that stuff, I haven't been able to look into all that yet. Like I said, I just started looking at it this afternoon, but that is some data that we do freshly have.
Anything else? Carla, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that budget. Thank you. I've had my hand raised for quite a while. So a couple of questions I have, if I can see that number again, if you don't mind sharing that, is does that budget include paying off the MSBA loan that we have outstanding for AES? Can you share the budget, if you don't mind, on the screen?
Dr. Cormier, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so it's been asked before. Basically, the short version of it is we don't know how or how much they'll make us pay back. They may ask for a check. They may just take it off a future MSBA project that we apply for. And Superintendent Morgan has kind of said they don't tell you until you actually file for the closing. So we don't have it included. So it could add to the cost, but since we won't know until they actually say anything, we just sort of left it.
Okay, so I guess the answer is no. And I know that the MSBA gave the district an extension to discuss and further of the reopening. It was just a pause of AES. So I'm a little surprised today that we heard from Pepperell that they had no idea there was a potential reopening because it was a pause. It wasn't a formal closure. The other question I have is
Can I just add something just to that previous question? I wouldn't say that it's not.
The numbers are not there, right? It doesn't include it.
They're not there, but we're currently paying utilities on Ashby Elementary.
Okay, but there's also the fee that you have to pay back for a MSBA loan.
Correct, but I've never heard of the MSBA requesting a lump sum payment in one time. So we know that
I understand. I'm saying
worst case scenario would be covered in 2 years.
Right. So it's not in that budget. The other mention I wanted to share with Jackie, I know she asked a question about the override. So last year, Ashby was in full support of an override as long as there was a school that will be remaining in Ashby. So I can confidently say I don't think Ashby would support any type of override of this budget if there's not a school.
Madam Chair, I'm going to raise another point.
And you're constantly interrupting when someone else is talking, and that's rude because we're here.
Or Carla, I know you want questions answered and things. Let's remain on topic.
It's about budget override.
And this I apologize, Madam Chair.
And
This is not a question. This is speculation. There is no evidence to suggest that Ashby will pass an override with or without a school. You cannot make a prediction based on the voters.
I'm not making a prediction. I was there personally when the voters spoke, and it was unanimous across the board that the town, the people, did not agree to an override because the school will be closing. So I just wanted to put that out there. If there's any type of override, this was a unanimous for hours into the late night of the entire public came together in town hall and they spoke, and this was unanimous across the board. I just wanted to share that, Jackie.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
As a point of order, I am worried about this past conversation of questions being asked that are not on the topic as presented on the agenda. Happy to have our committee discuss these as points of fact on a future agenda, but we are, in my perspective, skating very close to the line here. We are supposed to be talking about
the budget
and the decision of the school committee on Ashby, not speculation over birth rates, or that wasn't on the agenda and overrides weren't on the agenda. I just want us to be careful that we are not going off of our agenda and violating an open meeting rule, because the community didn't have expectation of us talking about those topics.
Jackie did ask a question about override. I do have another question about budget, though.
Carla.
And I feel I'm constantly being interrupted. So
Carla,
I have a question on the budget.
Need you to wait. I'm going to speak for a second. I need everyone to stay on topic. We need to stay on topic. I am going to say that we do not know how the voters in any town will react to anything. They have their own vote. We are, as a committee, can only put forward a budget to the town people, and they get to decide. We can't speculate on if they are going to approve it or not approve it. I don't want any more discussion about the town voting. I want to discuss about the budget and what has been presented tonight.
May I continue with my question? So the superintendent mentioned that there wasn't a formal request for review of other options like the K-2 that I brought up last week. I think Randy may have mentioned it too. I did try to share it. I didn't think that I needed to do a formal request. I thought that, the superintendent makes the best recommendation brought forth based on budget needs. But I just wanted to put that out there that was an option that was open to the table with Ashby as well for further discussion. And they are still open to further discussion on that option as a budget as well. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. And I know there's been a lot of interruptions. But just a question on the agenda, because Lisa, you had mentioned and Kim has mentioned that these are not on the agenda. I'm not sure if I'm looking at the right place. I've pulled up the agenda from the website, from our district website, and I pulled up the two that were in our packet, and I don't see AES on them.
Ashby?
I see FY26 budget, FY27 budget.
Ashby is under new business. It's the very first item.
I apologize. You're right. There was a lot of blue and I missed that. That's why I was kind of trying to ask. Thank you very much.
It's the first topic on our agenda.
I see that. Thank you.
Sorry about Randy. The others have a link, and that's why that stands out a little bit more. So,
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Keenan.
I'd like to make a motion to move on to the personal statement section of this discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, Jackie. Keenan, Francois with a motion to move on to the personal reflection or statement, and Jackie White is a second. Roll call vote. Michael Labossiere,
Yes.
Carla Lima,
Yes.
Randy Rush.
So this was to move to the next section. I apologize.
To the personal statement or the personal reflection.
Yes.
Jackie White,
Yes.
Alexander Bancuti,
Yes.
Lisa Bloom,
Yes.
Kim Craven,
Yes.
Keenan Francois,
Yes.
and myself, yes. All right, in this segment of the discussion, everyone, if they would like to speak, I will give you a few minutes to speak about your reflection on this. All right, Mike has raised his hand first.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Can I just do a point of clarification? Can we disallow follow-ups for these personal statements as they are personal statements and should not require any follow-up from any other member?
Well, we could take a vote of the committee to see how they would like to do that.
I will bring forward a motion to disallow follow-ups to any preceding statements.
I'll second it.
That is Keenan Francois and Kim Craven. All right, we will go. It's a roll call vote again. Keenan?
Yes.
Any discussion on this? Because I can understand not following up, but I'd also
Okay.
like to add in that nobody disparage anybody else or disparage anybody else's opinions or statements. Because if
And
someone's going to tell me that I'm absolutely wrong on something, I'm going to respond.
And I absolutely agree with you, Randy, and I believe everyone here should be at default always acting in good faith.
Okay, that is fine.
And we will be respectful, patient, and show grace to everyone. I think that's the key. All right, any more discussion about this? All right, and it's a roll call vote. So I'll start again. Keenan Francois?
Yes.
Kim Craven?
Yes.
Jackie White?
Yes.
Randy Rush?
Yes.
Lisa Bloom?
Yes.
Alexander Bancuti?
Yes.
Carla Lima?
Yes.
Michael Labossiere?
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right. Michael, I think you were.
All right. So I don't have any prepared statements, but I spent this afternoon going through everything that I could, emails that we've received as a committee, and all of the information that we've been presented, and obviously I've mostly been focused on information that we've seen recently because I'm a recent addition to the school committee. And all I can say about how I feel on this is that, and it's been said many times before, there's no good options available to us right now, given all the reasons that we have. So we're trying to choose from among options that are not great. And there are downsides, of course, to closing Ashby Elementary School. Nobody is saying that there's not downsides to it, but there's downsides to opening it as well. And I think that there's also, and I think something that it has been mentioned in the narrative statements and also in several of the emails that I received, that the committee received, that there have actually been some sort of unexpected positives of the shift of shifting students from AES into Townsend. And, at least two of the emails that I read when I was going through them again this afternoon used the word thriving to describe what how their children are after the shift from AES to, I think in most cases it was Spalding, SMS. So, the new friendships, a broader community, more resources and programs. One said even if AES remained open, they would keep their child at Spalding. There's different perspectives to how this is going to, how people would be affected by opening and closing Ashby Elementary. And I just want to make sure that, we all understand, and that everybody, everybody who's watching and listening and seeing this decision being made, that, like, in the end, our, as the school committee, the people that we are most responsible to is the students. And sometimes decisions need to be made that may not be, they're not going to be seen as the best decisions by some people. But again, we need to always be keeping in mind what is, in our judgment, the best thing for the students of the district. And that is what I'm going to be doing, and that is what I expect all of the other members of the committee are going to be doing. But I also know that other members of the committee may come to different conclusions than me about what is best, and that's okay. And members of the community may come to different decisions about what is best, and that's okay too. But in the end, as a committee, we're going to have to vote on what we do. And it is incumbent upon all of us, and I believe all members of the community, to remember that none of us are making these decisions lightly. We are not making these decisions without looking at all of the information available to us and considering the opinions of everybody involved. And if we come to a different conclusion than you, that doesn't mean we're bad. It doesn't mean we're stupid. It doesn't mean we haven't considered all the information. And I just want to make sure that that is understood by everyone. And I understand that too, about everybody else who's going to be, deciding on this. They may vote the opposite of how I vote, and that's okay. They came to that decision by their own judgment, and that's, and I'm rambling a little bit, but I think that's all I have.
Mike, thank you. All right, Randy.
Okay. As a school committee members, yes, our number one priority is the students. But the school committee is a little bit unique, and we need to look at the long-range plan for the students as well as the short term. Superintendent, no matter who the superintendent is, all through the years, presents first and foremost what they need for the next year. They have an outlook for a number of years, but it's the school committee's responsibility to question, to think ahead, to gather our own information, to make those decisions about what's best for the district going long term. This committee has not had a history. I know there's a lot of new members, and I've been on the committee the longest, so I certainly want to apologize for this going on, but this committee does not have a history of looking at all of the facts, all of the data, and having a long-range plan for the students. We make a lot of decisions isolated from everything else. Budget crises and difficult situations tend to bring out to be able to look in hindsight about what you've been doing wrong. I'm trying to bring forward what we need to do better, and that is looking forward. I said 2 years ago when it first came up about closing Ashby that I would never vote to leave this district with less capacity than we need to educate our children. The data I've been looking into is creating a full story of what I have never seen through the 16 years. We've had declining enrollment. Yes, back in 2010, we closed a school because we had declining enrollment. Our birth rates across the Commonwealth and in this district, you can look at NSDEC historical. It shows we were losing, 100 students, 50, 100, births each year. That's not the case now. 2008, the birth rate settled out, and we've been basically the same. We've been very consistent, which means that our enrollment should not be declining the way they are. These last 2 years of having fiscal crises after crises and talking about class sizes of 30 or 40 have driven kids out of this district in large amounts. We lost 80 students from FY24 to 25. We lost 150 students from FY25 to 26. We're losing them all over the place, including to private schools, to Voc Tech, through K through 8, we're losing students like we've never done before. You cannot base the trends in the district on the last 2 years. Looking back to 22, 23, and 24, we should be much higher. If we get our class sizes to where we want them to be, the optimal budget does a lot of that. And we take a look at moving the STEPS program like is what's planned for next year. We will leave Squanicook with absolutely no room and using every last little bit. They're going to have the STEPS program is probably going to be sharing a classroom, and there's no more room for adjustment and for any increases. We have a large kindergarten size. Not sure what we're going to do in that school. Probably put specials on carts. Spalding, very little room. Hawthorne Brook will have no room with those programs, and if we can put in those extra 4 teachers to get the class sizes down. We're shifting what Pepperell is experiencing right now at capacity in their schools over to the Townsend schools. That means any surge, which NESDEC says in 2028, we're going to have a bubble year, which means an increased class sizes. Where are we going to put them? If any of the students that currently are out of district now decide to come back in, or they graduate and the new births come into the schools and they don't choose private, where are we going to put them? When the housing developments in Pepperell are finally in place and those kids come into the district, where are we going to put them? I think we need that capacity to spread things out, to be able to spread out our special education, even if it might be a little bit more expensive. We have to make those decisions and have the ability to move them. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at the next couple of years of constant reconfigurations and moving students, trying to move special education programs, which is terrible for any of the kids, especially for the special education students to be moving them. And then we're going to have to start looking at mobile classrooms. Mobile classrooms have problems as far as teachers and students don't want to be in them. They require a full foundation, tying into water, sewer, electricity. They have to have a walkway to get to the main building. There's security access issues with them. I've spoken to another district that actually has them in place as a stopgap. They are not a solution, they're a stopgap, which also means if we're going to use them as a stopgap, we're going to have to build onto buildings for capacity if we need them. I'm making the argument that we need the capacity of Ashby. When we closed in 2010, it was supposed to be the Fitz and Squanicook. Squanicook remained open because we did not have the room for the preschools. They used to be in the elementary school. Each elementary school used to have preschool. They went into Squanicook because Spalding did not have the room for pre-K to 4 when they consolidated. All right, we have a lot more special education programs in the district now, taking up more space than we did then. We're at the same place. Why would we decrease our capacity when we're full and trying to bring in more programs that are going to take more space coming in the future? That is my argument as far as we need a budget that's going to go ahead and address the class sizes. Absolutely, 100%. These class sizes are not tolerable. But we need the capacity on where we're going to be able to put these students. There hasn't been enough thought put into how to keep Ashby on a low budget for next year while we figure out how we want to configure and how we want to use that capacity for what our needs are. We can do that in many different ways. We kept the FITS open by putting the Gateway program there, and then we had central office staff at that time in that building is what worked. What's the solution this year to keep the building going, not having $1.6 million in expenses, and be able to keep that capacity while we build a multi-year plan for the use of the capacity in the district. And I will stand by my numbers. I will give foundation. Oh, that's the other thing is the foundation enrollment is based on kids in our district. It's based on kids that choice out of our district. It's based on charter school enrollment. Our foundation enrollment has been going down since 25, we were at 3,099 for the foundation enrollment. 26 was 2,993, and foundation enrollment for 27 just came out at 2,869. That means that kids in this district are not going to our school, they're not going to charters, and they're not going to collaboratives. Those kids can come back, and we have to figure out how we're going to get them back. That is something for the school committee to be discussing. How are we going to bring money to this district? Enrollment is a number one way that we can bring more money to this district, get ourselves out of hold harmless. We were almost there before we started having these budget crises and started losing kids 80 and 150 per year. We were almost there. Advocacy, advocate for the inflation. I am told by NMRSD, had we gotten inflation, we'd be out of hold harmless and we'd be getting more money and we'd be able to do everything that we want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Keenan has it. Jackie, did you have your hand up? Or you have your hand up? All right,
Alex
you
as
go
well.
ahead.
So whoever.
Yep, go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, thank you. Just briefly, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I do want to say thank you to the lots of people who wrote in to us over the last few weeks of all ages. So I felt like we got a really good perspective from everyone, and you really did challenge me to think very deeply and thoughtfully about how I'm going to decide tonight. I'm a heart and head person, so I feel like both things come into focus for me when I'm, weighing these things out. Um, Someone who wrote in did ask me that if I were to vote to reopen Ashby, if I would stand up here tonight and be able to share with you where I'd be able to carve out the 1.4 or 1.6 million dollars needed to do that. I was able to look at a few things, make some cuts here and there, but nowhere near that number. But the other piece that really is swaying me is, again, hearing from the families and the teachers who have been positively impacted by the transition. I think I wasn't expecting to hear so much of that side, and it really does shine through to hear that we are seeing some real benefits to the move for this year. My hope is that it's not a forever thing, and my understanding is that we could go back to opening it as a school at some point in the future. But I think for now, the focus has to be on getting our house in order. And my last point will just be about that sense of community building. I feel like community is what we make of it, no matter where our location. So whether it's where you go for your career every day or where your kid plays sports, you make the families there, wherever that is, part of the thread of what makes up your family. So I hope that that sense continues. I'm also going to call on Pepperell and Townsend residents, of which I'm a Pepperell resident. I'm hoping that we can stop using language in these conversations that center around our residents will not support X, Y, or Z, or it's not fair for our town to pay A, B, and C. Like, truly, if we're going to embody this "we are NM" feeling, then I want us to kind of move away from that sense. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Alexander.
All right. To say I'm torn on this would be an understatement. The people of Ashby really value that school as part of their community, but I also have to be realistic in seeing, what, our communities say they can afford. And to be quite honest, lay all my cards out on the table, I'd want, the optimal budget, then some, and to open Ashby. I really strongly believe in schools. And, if anyone's seen me at Pepperell Town meetings, I'll be there, like passionately arguing for more money for the schools. If anything, I think we should highball it a little bit. But, it's just hard to see right now. Reopening Ashby as realistic. I really want to, and I'm like really, really, really torn on this. But at the end of the day, again, I would go for that big budget increase, but I have to be realistic here. I want these schools to be funded to the gills. I want tiny, small class sizes, lots of teachers, everything we can give them, all the schools open. But I just don't see it. And I wish I did. I really wish I did. And I want to see it. And, I'm struggling to see that path forward. And it really like tears me up to say that, but I'm a teacher. I want these kids. I'm a father of a kid in the district. I want these kids to have the best education possible in all three towns. But I'm struggling to see keeping Ashby open as a viable option. And I'm really sorry to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Keenan.
I apologize if I'm frank in this statement, but I've been elected by the town of Townsend as a delegate to represent them in the conduct of public education. And they've empowered me with the authority to exercise my best judgment in making decisions pertaining to public education and their expectations for the education of this community's youth. Those aren't my words. That's written in the policy of this body. It is not lost on me that much like a House representative or senator, that my decisions affect more than my own constituency, and I do have an obligation to the children of this whole district. I have and always will do my best to reflect that in my conduct as a member of this committee, including through my votes. In the wake of the January 13 school committee meeting, this body has received 32 emails from members across all three towns regarding the future of Ashby Elementary School. I continue to be moved by how many people have the confidence to speak up and ensure that their thoughts were heard. It is one of the many wonders of democracy, and I can't thank everyone enough for speaking out. I can't speak for everybody on this committee, but I read every single one up until the last hour of this meeting. I responded to several of them, and I did my best to inform members and community members where I could. This community deserves nothing but unfiltered honesty. From the day I was elected, I've been asking questions in every meeting and spending hours on my own deciphering documents that might have been written in a different language. I'm not an expert on education, I'm not an expert in finance, and I'm not qualified at all to conduct a study on the social economic impacts of literally anything. Despite this, the administration has been nothing but supportive in providing answers and detailed explanations to any questions promptly and efficiently. After listening to the hours upon hours of presentation, revisions, projections, and debates, there is no light at the end of this tunnel, and I will be voting to close Ashby Elementary School because I refuse to let this district and my constituents drown in indecision. This is an unfortunate ladder that I'm choosing as the way out because there is nobody coming to bring us a better one. The federal government is not going to save us. The state is not going to save us. The towns cannot save us. This committee has left families in limbo for over 2 years and have failed to give the people of Ashby the dignity that they deserve regarding this matter. I'm not blind to the cost of this vote beyond the ledger, but this is what I truly believe is in the best interest of the children of this district and their education moving forward.
Thank you, Keenan. Carla.
Thank you. So again, I want to thank everyone as well that sent emails in. I think I also read every single one of them. From my town, from Townsend, from Pepperell, every single one of them was heard. The ones that were con and pro to the closure of AES permanently. I've also sat here as a parent, as a member, a constituent of Ashby. I've listened to the town. I've listened to the people. And again, I think we should look at long-term longevity of our students and not just a short-term fall of our budget. There'll always be short-term falls. Budgets get tight. But do we put our children at inequality because of it? Do we displace our kindergartners from our town because of it? I think there are other options that could be studied and looked at that weren't looked at. I think those come forward as a recommendation from the superintendent. And those are the only ones that he brought forward, was of closing AES. I think we could have explored other options to that budget not being that 1.6 or whatever it is at full capacity of our teachers, even though we didn't have a full principal, we didn't have a full nurse at the previous years when it was open. It's not the best. Obviously, we'd love the optimal to be a full-time, but I think there could be other opportunities that were missed in exploring prior to making a final decision of just closing because of the budget. Again, I am all in favor of redoing this budget and looking at other options and working with the town for other options. And I hope that at the end of the day, when we all close our eyes and put our beds to sleep, we don't think about those little children that are hauling in the bus and, the option that they could be in their own town. At the end of the day, whatever decisions we make, there'll be children that will be sacrificed and children that will benefit from it. But are we doing the right thing for this district, for the growth? And if it does close, there isn't an option to reopen. There isn't an option for 20 years to get funding from other places for expansion. And our possibility will put them into mobile classrooms, which isn't really a full classroom. So again, everyone has their own idea of which way to vote. I'll just ask you to think about these scenarios before you make your final decision. And I strongly oppose the closure of AES and looking at it at other opportunities, not just K through 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Kim Craven.
Thank you. I appreciate the input from the many community members, the town administrators, Board of Selectmen members, and my fellow school committee members, and can't thank the administration enough for the time that they have put into consistently responding to requests for information, reviewing information, answering questions, and provided the needed framework that we had to look at to make this difficult decision. As a school committee member and the chair of the finance committee, my responsibility is to evaluate decisions through the lens of long-term financial sustainability, while also considering the educational quality and operational realities. I hear and I understand the emotional attachment to the building. I can't let that overshadow, however, the current operational demands and the budget in which we have to work. Moreover, we have to think of our communities in their totality and the requests that they have made of the school committee to stay within a budget that they can support. Last year, the school committee reviewed multiple options, held meetings and hearings, and the school committee at that time voted to close AES. Then we went to a pause. In the past year, there's been an opportunity to review much information. For myself, after reviewing enrollment trends, looking at build-outs that are happening within the community, and really looking at what the impact will be long-term, hearing from what the enrollment numbers will be, the small numbers that will be coming into our community as a result of those developments. The building conditions that currently exist throughout the district, unknown compliance issues, unknown costs, some things that I saw myself when I was on tour, pouring through past reports and documentation, our current building utilization, projected maintenance costs and things that we need to do in the future, transportation impacts and things that have been solved with working with our bus company, and projected budget pressures and issues that we'll be facing with the contracts. I look at what could simply be a vote for a number and a budget to open, but then I reflect on what will happen long term and what will that mean. We've tried to envision other uses for AES. Unfortunately, some of those decisions are not in the control of us as school committee members or the district administration. Unfortunately, it's become evident to me that trying to keep Ashby Elementary School open at this time is not the most fiscally responsible course of action. When I look at what the district needs alone to address the educational needs and learning environment of the children, that's something that I want to tackle first. There's funding that is needed there across the district to enhance the learning environment of everybody. To reopen Ashby with programs that we have currently would mean operating a school at a significant undercapacity, which disproportionately skews the number in favor of a few classrooms while still having the pressures across the district. So we would be spending money to open a school in whatever capacity, but not solving problems that we're experiencing district-wide. It's a difficult decision, but from my perspective, improvements that we need to make have to affect the district and all of the students collectively. I feel that at this time, a reopening of Ashby would subject us to recurring costs that we just can't maintain, and we would find ourselves back in the same spot after disrupting families, teachers, and students again. This decision for me is not a reflection at all for the value that the Ashby community places on a neighborhood school. I understand that value. Unfortunately, we have to think of our neighborhood in a little bit of a different way. When I look at rural communities in general, many rural communities travel much further than our children do to go to school. I think we as adults and leaders in our community have to reframe our conversations on what is community and what is neighborhood. What I'm seeing is that Ashby children in a Townsend school are creating a sense of community. It exceeded my expectations. I don't have a child in the school. What I hear is anecdotal. What I see is anecdotal. But I did read some of that in the letters that the parents wrote to us. So for me, financial stability, equitable educational opportunities for all of our students is what I want to preserve. It's probably the most difficult vote that I will ever take to close a school. It's not one that I want to take, but it's my obligation to think of all of the kids in the district. And that includes the input that we heard from Varnum. The pressures that we have across the district have to be thought of in their totality. I hate to say that my vote will be, unfortunately, to not reopen Ashby at this time.
Thank you, Kim. Lisa Bloom.
I do totally agree with Randy and Carla. I'm in total favor of running Ashby and keeping it open. And at no point in time have Ashby voters had anything to say in what happens to AES. All decisions were made among a small group, mostly non-residents. Ashby has about 26 or nearly 2,600 voters who would like the option to vote on repair renovations on Ashby Elementary. They should have the ability to be able to vote on it and be in this decision of keeping Ashby open. And that's all I have to say. My vote would be yes to keep it open.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. I know that this is not an easy decision for any of us. I want to start by saying this clearly. My focus is on our students of NM, always and always will be. Every decision I make is about making sure every child in every town has the education they deserve, regardless of where the lines on a map fall. Our students come with different needs. Some need extra support, specialized instruction, or additional guidance. These needs are not optional. They're essential. I see our teachers, our paraprofessionals, custodians, nurses, counselors, IT support, and administration working every day to meet those needs. And as a committee member, it is my job to make sure they have the resources and support to do it through a solid budget. Sometimes doing what's right means making tough decisions. School closures and budget shifts are never easy. But I ask you to see through one question. Will this help our students succeed? That's the lens I carry every day and with every decision I make for this committee. I want to be clear about something that's important. It's not buildings that teach. Our teachers teach. Resources don't educate. They make the learning possible. I know that these decisions can be hard for our towns and families, and I feel that. But my responsibility is to all the children, their learning, their growth, and their opportunities. Their education comes first. That is what guides every decision I will make. I will be choosing to close Ashby. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to move to question.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. That is Keena Francois and Jackie White. Any further discussion?
Can you just clarify the vote?
My motion is to permanently close Ashby Elementary School.
Second.
Okay, right. Thank you for the clarification.
Keena Francois and Jackie White with a second. I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. Alexander Bancuti.
Sadly, I'm going to have to say yes.
Lisa Bloom.
No.
Kim Craven.
Regretfully, yes.
Keena Francois.
Yes.
Michael Labossiere.
Yes.
Carla Lima.
No.
Randy Rush.
For all the students in the district, no.
Jackie White. Jackie.
Yes.
And myself, yes. The next agenda item we're moving to is the calendar. And I think Gary or Dr. Reese has that agenda item.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm just looking for an adjustment to the current school year's calendar. Over the past two professional development days, our kindergarten teachers have been meeting to discuss the kindergarten screening process. As you may be aware, that happens currently the first 2 days after the April vacation, where our current kindergarten students don't have school, and we bring in the incoming kindergarten students to do the screening. There have been some questions and concerns about the depth of the screening tool that we're using, as well as the timing to administer that screening in April. Doesn't give us the best sense of what student needs might be come September, as well as the fact that it doesn't help us in terms of best gauging kind of student groupings. So they wanted to shift the kindergarten screening dates from April 27th and 28th and actually go to June 3rd, 4th, and 5th for the kindergarten screening. And the reason for the additional day is they've had some additional conversation, again, around the tool, which really looks at more academic skills. And they felt like one of the things that was missing from that tool was looking at some of those work habits and student behavior skills that aren't necessarily assessed from that individual tool. Varnum Brook this year had done an additional screening where they had kids come in and they brought them into play, and the teacher did some observations. She had them stop the task and see how well they transition, see how well they play with one another. And those types of things help them better determine kind of class groupings going into the next year. So what I'm requesting is that the committee approve a schedule change for the kindergarten screening from April 27th and 28th and move it to June 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Gary, or Dr. Reese, I have a question on this. Does this mean that the current kindergartner class will be taking the 3rd, 4th, and 5th off?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay,
So the reason we wanted to do it tonight, I know there was a lot of large traffic on the agenda tonight, but we want to make sure we give families enough time to notify them of the change.
Okay. All right. Because currently it's only 2 days off. This is 3
Correct.
days.
Correct.
All right. So I just wanted to make that clear to the public that this is. Does anyone else have any questions about this? All right. I will take a motion.
I move to change the calendar as Dr. Reese suggests.
Second.
I second.
Kim, I think, got the second. Sorry, Lisa. So that was Alexander and Kim with the second. I will take a roll call vote. Jackie White.
Yes.
Randy Rush.
Yes.
Carla Lima.
Yes.
Lisa Bloom.
Yes.
Michael Bossier.
Yes.
Keenan disappeared. That's what. So Keenan has left it. All right. Kim Craven.
Yes.
Lisa Bloom. Did I get you already? Yes. And Alexander Van Cooten.
Yes.
And myself. Yes. All
Thank
right,
you.
Dr. Reese, on the next one. Or you don't have the calendar. Does Brad have the calendar?
I do, yes. And
Okay.
the calendar has been shared with the school committee, has been shared with the Teachers Association, and just looking for approval. Something just to look at is how early Labor Day is this coming school year. So it did bump everything, essentially move everything forward a week with regard to August. So we're going to be starting a little bit later in August, just because starting anything earlier than that would have been too early in the month of August with people's summer plans. So outside of that, the format is essentially the same, with time for parent conferences, K to 8. And we'll take any questions, if you have any, on the school calendar for 2026-27.
Anyone have any questions? Jackie White.
So I might be reading this wrong. It looks like on the graphic of the calendar dates for the end of the school year, June 10th and 17th are circled, but in the text, it's June 9th and 16th. So I'm just curious.
I can look at that. We had some changes, and
Okay.
so I can look at. Once it's approved, I go back and I make sure that everything aligns.
Okay.
So apologize that wasn't done beforehand.
Got it. That was my
The
only
document I'm looking at right now, they match up the calendar and the text.
question. Okay.
Yes.
I clicked on the link in the agenda, so maybe I'm not.
I did as well. That's
I
what
clicked
I'm looking
on the
at.
same link.
Sorry, Robin.
Yeah.
I know.
No,
There's a
it's
back and
teamwork.
forth.
Thank you. I
Yeah, that's all
appreciate
good.
it, Jackie.
Yeah.
So we can make that correction.
All right. Anyone else have any questions?
Can I make a
And the
motion?
kindergarten screening, whoops, sorry. And the
Sorry.
kindergarten screening is in here. It's moved, correct, for next year?
It ends up coming in the second page of text, but it would be the same model of in June, the 3 days.
All right. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the calendar for the 26-27 school year?
I move that we approve the calendar for the 2026-27 school year.
Second.
All right, that was Michael and Alexander Van Cruden with the second. Okay, roll call vote. Jackie White,
Yes.
Alexander Van Cruden,
Yes.
Lisa Bloom,
Yes.
Michael Labossiere,
Yes.
Carla Lima,
Yes.
Randy Rush,
Yes.
Lisa Bloom. No, I did Lisa Bloom. Correct? It's Kim Craven.
And I'm a yes.
And I am a yes as well. All right, the calendar is approved. Next item on the agenda, we are skipping over the Spirit AI summer program that has been scratched from the calendar. Moving down to subcommittee reports. Kim, do you have anything from finance?
I would say that I don't have anything more from finance than what I went over. I would encourage everyone to read the 4-page packet, and that our outcome from the meeting was just the vote to bring those forward for all of us for discussion. We'll be having another meeting to prepare for the budget hearing on the 9th, and then we will proceed with our vote for the full school committee after that.
Thank you, Kim, for that update. Moving on to policy, Randy.
Have several policies for adoption this evening. I had received, oh, one moment. Where it is, I received from Nancy a comment on DIB. Let me just bring it up. Hold on a minute. She had concerns on, I apologize. She had concerns on one of the statements in the policy. As far as the paragraph that said the $500,000 balance that we would re-examine if the budget, that the budget, if it exceeds $500,000 in the unexpended expenses, it should trigger an examination of the current year's budget for areas that should be reduced. She had concerns that would not, that there wasn't clarified as far as the end of the year balance from the previous year. If she thought that if we were like right now, our budget predicts $2.1 million in unexpended expenditures, that would trigger that line. So I made a suggestion. Unfortunately, I did not hear back from her of replacing that with the end of the year. Or we can add in the 6/30 of the June 30th end of year final report. Unexpended would be $500,000, and it would instead of saying reductions, adjustments. So there's no link for that policy. There's that. So I would suggest that we change fast enough.
So can I just ask a question about that?
Yes.
When you say 6:30, do you mean that it has absolutely been spent, or if we have like pending POs that we might not pay until July? Like, what's the 6:30 cutoff? Is it
The
6:30
6:30 is the
today?
report that comes out for 6:30. When this year it came out later because you were waiting for expenses to come in. So whatever that end of the year budget on 6:30 winds up being.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, what's the timeline
yeah.
for submitting it? Because like our end of year reports due September 30th. So I mean, is it September 30th for the 6:30 end of year report, or is it just when we happen to know they're all paid? Like, what's the?
I would say when you have the final report, September should be fine. What this line in the policy was supposed to do was when we know what our unexpended expenses for the previous year were, if they were over $500,000,
No,
that
no,
we
I understand.
at,
I was just
yeah,
more figuring out when was the cutoff? Like, when did we need to know? That's all. If you needed to know on 6:30 versus like,
not
okay,
on 6:30.
okay. So as long as that's clear.
Right, because again, it's looking at, we want to try and keep a tighter rein on the budget so that if we know last year we had, textbooks, we put in $100,000 for textbooks and we spent $50,000 instead of the $100,000, and that resulted in us having $1 million of excess through other things. We may look at that this year and say, you know what? We haven't been spending $100,000 on textbooks. Let's rearrange and adjust our budget this year.
No, I understand the
where
spirit
we
of it.
need
I'm just talking about when is the deadline for us to
Okay,
actually
right.
know that or not for the purposes of this policy.
If you can think of language, my thought was when that report is finalized.
Okay, so I mean, like I said, it's due to the state by September
Yep.
30th. So
the September 30th is fine.
All right, perfect.
Because it doesn't mean that we're not recertifying the budget based on that, but we're looking at our current budget. Again, it's meant to make the current budget a living document to really kind of take a look at the actual expenses, which we don't have in our hand when we're doing the next year's budget. To now take those when we have them to take a look at the budget and
Okay, 100%. I just said it's more. Our question was just more about the timeline of it. Like if you meant drop dead date was 6:30 versus those rollover POs counting, because it could look different on 6:30 than like 7:30. So we just want to make sure that we have the information to you at the right time.
Yes. So if the end of the year balance, Kevin, how would you state that would be clear on that report? The end of the year balance reported to the state?
Yeah, because the end of year report is, and you can just capitalize end of year report, and that's sort of the known title of it.
Okay. So you can take a look in the file. That's 1, 2, 3. The fourth paragraph says, the last sentence says the end of the year balance on any budget exceeds 500,000. It should trigger an examination of the current year's budget for any necessary adjustments. Would be the change in this policy. Other than that, there were no other comments made to me. On that budget, or on that policy. Did people want to take these one by one, or did we want to do them as a group? And this one I would take separately because we were making a minor adjustment.
I think if you take this one separately, I think that makes sense, Randy. Let's take this one separately.
Okay.
And then the rest we can take together.
So that was the only feedback that I had on DIB fiscal reserves. And we made that adjustment. So I would move that we approve policy DIB fiscal reserves as amended for adoption.
I second.
That was Randy.
Just ask a clarifying question.
Yep.
Is that the one that in the Google Drive is the DIB chair version? Is that the one you're talking about? Because I see there's two different DIBs in the folder. There's the DIB includes proposed edits, and then DIB chair version includes proposed
I apologize. I did not realize that was two of them. Robin, we had voted the chair version the last time for a first adoption.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the one that I should be looking at and voting on.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, and I see that has the change to the projected end of year language. It says analysis, adjustments, variance. It has that different language that you were talking about. So that makes sense.
Okay. All right.
All right. So we have a
So I
motion
made-
on the floor. It was Randy had the motion and Lisa had the second. Lisa Bloom had the second. Okay, it's a roll call vote. Before I go to the roll call, any other questions? All right. Roll call vote. Randy,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Lisa Bloom,
Yes.
Jackie White,
Yes.
Alexander Bancuti,
Yes.
Kim Craven,
Yes.
and myself, yes. All right, moving on to the next one, Randy.
Okay. Okay. I'm just looking, making sure I didn't receive any communication on these. The DI. So I'm going to move that we approve for adoption policy DIBA revolving funds. JJF student activity accounts. JICJ, which is also GBEF, use of cell phones and portable communication devices. Then GBEF, also JICJ, use of cell phones and portable communication devices. Policy JII, student complaints and grievances. And policy JJ, co-curricular, extracurricular activities.
Second.
I second.
It was Randy with the motion and Mike with the second. So roll call vote. Randy,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Lisa Bloom,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Alexander Bancuti,
Yes.
Kim Craven,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Just moving on.
Lisa, do you mind if I just make a clarification?
Yeah.
Earlier, Kim confirmed the next finance committee meeting. I think she said was the 9th, but it's February 6th is the next meeting. I just
So the finance.
Correct, Robin. Yes, sorry.
No,
the
I just
budget
wanted to
hearing.
make sure it was correct on record
February 6th is the next finance meeting.
at 8 a.m. Yep, and it's already posted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. All right, moving on.
Can I just add something, Lisa?
Yes, go ahead, Randy.
Now that we have approved policy DIB fiscal reserves, we do need to decide. I would probably kick it over to the finance subcommittee for a recommendation of what we should do for this year, on whether we should have a transition year or how we're going to work this policy into effect. Knowing that this was coming down the lines, it was a little disappointing to see $2 million and us not wean ourselves off of any of the E&D at the very least, if not just go cold turkey. But we do need to have a recommendation to the school committee to decide on how we're going to deal with this policy now that we have adopted it. The school committee can choose to transition or wait till next year to enact it, but we do need to make a decision on it. That should be on the next agenda, I would say. In addition, I'd like to bring up to the chair that we need to take a look at another policy that we had approved a couple of meetings ago. I don't have the exact meeting on hand, but on the student representative for the school committee, that has changed. We adopted the policy. And it is not one member that comes to our school committee like we've been doing, but we actually have to meet with a group. So that is something that we should look at and figure out how we're going to enact and start following the law on that one.
Okay. Is that something that we will have Superintendent Morgan help us with, or the counselor, or the high school principal? Where do we want to start with this?
I would say we can probably see whether the student council wants to be that group that we meet with.
Okay. Okay.
And that should satisfy, I forget how many times we should be meeting with them, but that should satisfy the law.
Is it just one person meets with them, or is it a committee meets with them?
I don't think that's made clear. I can double check and look into that.
So just let me know, and then we can let the rest of the committee know how this process works. All right. Thank you, Randy. All right. And Kim, you're fine with taking the DIB policy and applying it with finance and getting a recommendation from finance. Is that correct? I will follow up with Kim. I'm pretty sure that she is okay with that. And Michael is on the finance committee as well. We will get it on the next agenda. All right, moving on. We are moving to advocacy. Keenan is not on. Operations, none. Outreach, any information from Ashby? I see that Carla has dropped off. Anything from Pepperell? I have not heard anything from Pepperell. Randy, anything from Townsend?
They were reaching out of when the public hearing was and how that was being done, but I went to their Board of Selectmen meeting and answered some questions on the Spalding Memorial lease, on where that stood, as well as the regional agreement. I explained to them where those two stood. The district does need to start moving forward with the Spalding Memorial lease, which is out of date right now. So that process kind of got forgotten after we had cleared up some not misunderstandings, but just some differences on how to address the one of the groups using our school buildings over the summer. So we have that in a separate agreement, and then the lease never got finished. So that is something that we do need to complete with them.
Which committee would take this, or is it a full committee?
That was generally the administration working with them.
Okay. Brad, you are fine with taking on the lease and figuring out the lease?
Yes.
Spalding?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Thank you. Anything else from Townsend, Randy?
No.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We're moving on to, we have an executive session. So if somebody would read the motion.
A question before we do is probably does it say on the agenda? Are we reconvening an open session after?
Oh, no, we are not reconvening an
open
not. Session.
Okay, I just wanted to check that. All right, so where is the motion? All right, so if I'm going to make this motion, I want to make sure I do it right. Do I need to read the full motion, including the purposes that are listed?
Yes.
Okay.
The entire motion, all of it.
Okay. All right. So I will make a motion to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for the following purpose. Purpose 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, assistant business manager, and business manager. Purpose 7, to comply with or to act under authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. And it related to executive session minutes dated December 16th, 2025 and January 13th, 2026.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Was Mike with the motion and Jackie White with the second. Roll call vote. Alexander Bancuti,
Yes.
Lisa Bloom,
Yes.
and Craven,
Yes.
Michael Labossiere,
Yes.
Randy Rush,
Yes.
Jackie White,
Yes.
and myself is yes. The session, we will not be reconvening in open session.